Good morning, everybody. This is a new face for you in a new position. Marvin Powell III here, fortunate enough to stand in for Scott Morganroth this morning with the South Florida Tribune. Today we have myself with Candy Ebling, and we have Mel Farr Jr., former UCLA Bruin, former NFL running back. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on your new job.
Hey, listen, this is a historic moment. I was telling Candy off air, I think I'm the first USC Trojan to host for the South Florida Tribune. I think I'm the first ex-athlete to host for the South Florida Tribune. Mel, I may be the first African-American to host for the South Florida Tribune. So listen, this is historic in many ways, man, and super grateful for Scott Morganroth putting this together and just give me an opportunity to step in his shoes for a minute and see what it's like to be the big man. A lot of sports topics going on, a lot of football. We got NFL Combine. We just finished the biggest game of the year, and we want to jump into some off-season stuff here. Cleveland Brown, new head coach Todd Monken has said there's going to be an open competition at quarterback with Deshaun Watson, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders in the building. Question is, Mel, do the Cleveland Browns already have their franchise quarterback in the building, or are they going to have to look elsewhere? Last year, obviously, they played rookies, Dillon Gabriel. They played Shedeur Sanders. Both received starts. Sanders ended up starting the end of the season, played well. Watson's been out of it seems like 5 years now. Do you think, but he's still under contract, do you think, Mel, that the starting quarterback or the future quarterback for the Browns is in that building right now? Or will this be an ongoing saga and heartache for head coach Todd Monken?
I mean, I do. Because I like Shedeur. I watched him play for 4 years in college. I've watched everything that he did. I mean, I pretty much watched every snap. Yeah. I think that he can be a franchise leading quarterback. I'm not so sure about Deshaun. We haven't seen him play good football in 5 or 6 years. Dillon Gabriel, I just don't like him. That's just me personally. I don't think he's the guy. But I think competition is good. I think having an open competition is good because competition is going to bring out the best in everybody. You know, the cream rises to the top. So I don't think you want to go in as a new head coach coming in there and just anointing somebody the starter. I think you go in there. You have an idea of who you think is going to be the starter, who you think is going to rise to the top. But I think you have to go in with the idea that these guys are going to compete because, heck, at every other position they compete. You know, we compete at every other position other than the quarterback position. We want to anoint somebody to start at the quarterback. When you don't have a quote unquote defined starting quarterback, you have to have a competition, an open competition. I'd bring somebody else in there as well, other than just the three that they have in the building right now. I would bring somebody else in there to compete for that job so that you know that you have the best opportunity to win, because obviously the head coach's job, I mean, he's hitching his wagon to whoever he determines is going to be the starting quarterback. So a lot of his job stability and the length of time that he's going to be in that job is going to be dependent upon who he chooses at the quarterback position. So I think that's the smart move. I think that's the only move as a head coach is to have, and particularly with the Cleveland Browns, is to have an open competition at the quarterback position.
Yeah, all good points. Candy, what are your thoughts? Do the Cleveland Browns currently have their starting quarterback, their franchise quarterback in the building?
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I know everybody's high on Shedeur, and I know that at the end of the year he was doing better. We've also talked about consistency at coaching matters, especially in the first couple of years. So maybe they do, and they just haven't had the right coaches for him. You know, maybe with Todd Monken coming in there and getting other, coaches around him. I don't see Watson being it. Gabriel, we'll give him a little bit of run for his money. I'm not so sure he's at the same level, but I don't know. I think they're gonna have to bring somebody else in. And I'm not saying that Shedeur isn't good, but I don't know that he's the right fit for that team. And maybe this year with the new coaches, he will be. I think it'll be interesting to watch that whole play out.
Yeah. I think considering that last year we all had a chance to watch Dillon Gabriel get his opportunities. We saw how that went. And then we saw Shedeur get his opportunities. We saw how that went. You didn't see, a lot of it's could be the media and just how they portray it. but it didn't really seem like Dillon had a good grip on that offense last year. Obviously, he's a first-year player. He'll play better next year. And then Shedeur came in there, and Shedeur made some plays. I mean, he made some mistakes too, but he made plays. And I think, when you see him out there running around, avoiding sacks, making deep balls, I think he pushed the ball down the field more last year than they had in the last year or two or something like that. And it's a situation where I think, the media is for and against Shedeur, you feel like, but he's definitely buzzing. I would be shocked, to be honest with you, if Shedeur wasn't playing quarterback for the Browns next year. With Deshaun Watson, he's been out of it so long, and you just wonder if he can come back and be that same electric player that he was. So they got a lot of questions in that building. Todd Monken definitely has his hands full. I think Mel makes a great point. It's probably realistic that they bring in another quarterback, other quarterbacks, just to compete and just to kind of mix it up. But yeah, with three guys right now coming back from last year, it is possible that the Browns have a quarterback, but in the NFL, the not for long league, who knows? I have no idea. So yeah, good takes there. Moving forward. Jacoby Lane, who was a friend of the South Florida Tribune, if you recall, during Senior Bowl week, Scott was able to get an interview and spend some time with Jacoby Lane. Jacoby Lane is a wide receiver out of the University of Southern California. He's a Trojan. He's projected to be drafted in the top 2 rounds, most likely looking at the second round. Jacoby Lane came out and blasted a 3-star recruit, who I won't mention by name, blasted a 3-star recruit because this recruit had allegedly stolen items out of Jacoby's locker and then took them home after his recruiting trip and then posted up the stolen items on his social media. Jacoby blasted the guy. He did. He came out on social media. He was specific about what happened. He called the kid out by name. This is a high school kid, a high school senior who's going all over the country. These kids get paid to take recruiting trips. So this kid's getting paid, 5, 10, 15 grand to go on a recruiting trip. He goes to USC, allegedly steals Jacoby's stuff, and then puts it on social media. Mel, let me ask you, was Jacoby wrong for blasting this kid on social media, putting his business out there, putting his name and picture out there? Was that wrong, considering it's a high school kid, or was that the right thing and we have to teach these kids accountability?
No, I think that's the absolute right thing to do. I think UCLA had a problem with that a few years ago with some recruits coming to the Rose Bowl, stealing things out of their lockers. And that's the thing you have going on now, with these young kids, they don't understand, hard work, what it takes to get things. They'd rather just go ahead and steal something as opposed to working hard for it. He figures that, hey, he got it. He's got an NIL deal. He can just go ahead and replace it. I'm just going to go ahead and take it from him. He's not going to mind. Oh, no. I mean, he obviously he did mind. He worked for that stuff, and it has a certain value to him. That kid who stole the items, it has no value to him. It's just, something that he can go on Instagram and he can, become an Instagram famous for or whatever. That he can just flash some bling on Instagram. So yeah, he absolutely did the correct thing by exposing this young man. This is the real world. This is life. When you get, that's the least thing that could have happened to him. You continue to do things like that, you're going to find yourself having bigger problems depending on who it is that you decide to steal from. And then, let's not even talk about the consequences with the law. If you just do that in a locker room and guys find out that you're that type of person, you're going to have problems in a locker room. Forget about what happens in the real world. But yeah, absolutely. And hopefully the young kid learned his lesson and he will no longer have sticky fingers and he'll leave other people's items alone.
So, let me ask you a follow-up to that. How should USC or other schools who are recruiting this kid approach this?
Well, other schools, I think, they have to approach it however they want to approach it. But I think as far as USC is concerned, I wouldn't be recruiting this kid anymore. Just to be honest with you, that this kid would be off my list. He's not the type of guy that we want in our locker room. He doesn't have the type. But again, we're talking about USC. You guys like guys with rap sheets and, the criminal element and things of that nature. So you guys may recruit him. At UCLA, we would tell them, hey, you have to go to USC. This is not the place for you. UCLA is not the place for you. You're probably better suited to go to a place like USC.
Fair enough, man. We'll come back to that. Candy, what do you think? Did your old friend Jacoby take it too far? Was it fair? And how should the schools respond to this?
I think in today's social media world, everything is out there. And so I think Jacoby Lane did what he thought was right. Now, my question would be is, we said allegedly, like, have we proven that he did take, like, how does he know for sure? Was it actually like his stuff with his name on it? Or, you know what I mean? Like, or was it generic? But yeah, I would definitely, Jacoby did what he thought was right. Yeah, everybody does that. Everybody posts on social media so much these days. What should USC do? I would definitely stop recruiting this kid, because you do not want that in your locker room. And I would, as far as any other school, I would say the same thing, because what kind of culture are you bringing in if you already had somebody that wasn't on the team, you're recruiting them, as a recruit, you're trying to impress and be impressed. So why would you go ahead and do something like this? I would definitely pull the offer, because again, Mario Cristobal in Miami talks about building culture and the culture of that locker room and how important that is. If you can't trust your teammates, who can you trust in that locker room? Like, would what consequences would you have in that locker room? Behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I've never been, obviously. I do quick want to just say hi to Eddie Prater in the chat room. He says his mom would have blistered his behind if he had pulled that stunt.
Yeah.
Too many kids acting like fools these days.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I'll be honest. When I first heard this, my first thought was Jacoby should have kept that private, should have kept that in-house. If that were me, that's how I would have handled it. I don't know that I would have put the kid on blast and gone out there and done that. Listen, nobody's made more mistakes than me. I believe that nobody's made more mistakes than me. Granted, I wasn't stealing from the athletes on my recruiting trips, which is crazy to me. This kid was definitely embarrassed. Now there's a follow-up story that maybe it wasn't stolen, and but it's a really bad look, I think, for the kid. And I don't know that Jacoby Lane, who is about to be a multimillionaire if he's not already. I mean, listen, and just because you have money doesn't mean you should be okay with someone taking your stuff. But again, young kid, social media is the devil. It's so big. You can ruin someone's reputation on there. I think, I believe in accountability, but I would have wanted to see Jacoby handle this a little bit differently. It's just a bad look for the university, a bad look for the kid. And in regards to how the school should handle it, I'm with you guys. This probably is going to end the recruitment of this player. And, if I'm other schools, I just take caution and take a mental note. So, yeah, it's really an unfortunate situation. Yeah. So, all right, moving on here. I'm going to move through a few topics here. Are running backs still worth first-round picks? In the last 2 years, we've seen Kenneth Walker. We have seen Saquon Barkley lead their teams to Super Bowls with great seasons and big Super Bowl wins. We've seen the running back be the focal point and be the closer. In these big games and in these seasons leading into the big game. With that said, Mel, should NFL teams who have gone to this pass-happy offense, NFL teams who've gone to this three-wide offense, should they be reconsidering the running back position and reconsidering their priorities on offense? And when you look at what Saquon and what Kenneth were able to do for the last two Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, I think, we know the NFL is a copycat league. And if you look at it, and I've talked about it many a times, I mean, a quarterback's best friend is a strong running game. And if you don't have that, the running game allows you to shorten games so that you limit possessions on the other side of the ball. And, this is a guy that touches the ball, just slightly as much as a quarterback. I mean, a running back's going to touch the ball 20 to 25 times a game, a good running back. And where you find your special running backs, you find them in the first round. Now, granted, Kenneth Walker was a second-round draft pick. out of Michigan State. But we know where Saquon was drafted. We know Derrick Henry. He was a second round draft pick as well. Do you always get that guy in the first round? Not always, but generally the special backs, they come in the first round. Bijan Robinson, the kid at Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs. These are special types of backs that they're game breakers. I mean, they can hit their head in the goalpost from any place on the field. That is a weapon. Christian McCaffrey, a guy like him, that's a do-it-all running back. Finally, Roger Craig is getting his due, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was the first dual-purpose running back. The guy, had 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing as well. So he was the very first one. He was a handful to deal with. When you have a running back, takes so much pressure off of the quarterback, takes so much pressure off the offense. It puts a lot of pressure on the defense as far as how you're going to play. Whether you're going to play nickel, dime packages, or whether you're just going to play your base package. And then if you're playing your base package, then you have a mixed match out there because of the matchup on the running back. So, yeah, I mean, these teams are getting so pass happy. You got all these young guys, these gurus, and I think they go to sleep at night and they dream of all kind of passing plays and what they can do in the passing game. But if you can dominate the line of scrimmage, on the offensive side of the ball, dominate the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball, and have a strong running game, that is the absolute best thing you can do outside of drawing up all these plays. You don't have to draw up a whole lot of design plays as far as in the passing game. If you're able to run the football when everybody knows you're going to run the football, you're dangerous. And that travels. That's good weather, bad weather. That stuff travels. And you have an identity. It means you're a physical football team. You're not a gimmick football team. You're a physical football team. That stuff travels. And it's demoralizing for defense when you know that the run is coming and you can't stop it. So absolutely. I mean, these owners, GMs, they should be looking at ways in which they can improve their dominance on the line of scrimmage. Because if you have a soft football team, just don't win. They just don't play well in cold weather either. I mean, you look at some of these teams, and I shouldn't call them soft, but you look at some of these teams that are real pass happy. That doesn't translate in December and January in the cold weather. It's very difficult to win with those types of teams in cold weather. Those teams just aren't physical enough. And you have to have a physical element to you. I mean, football is a physical game. You go back and you look at the history of the game. Football is a very physical game. That hasn't changed about football. So I think you definitely want to invest in a running back. I believe that there are some running backs that are worthy of first round grades and should be drafted in the first round because they can change your franchise.
Yeah, all good takes, Mel. Candy, should the NFL reconsider bringing back these running backs and making them first round priorities, especially after what we saw the last two Super Bowl champions do, as they pretty much led with great running back play?
I think what you have to do is you have to look at your team and look at what the draft has to offer you. Where are you picking? Because yes, running backs are extremely important. Don't get me wrong. Dual threat. But you also need offensive linemen to make some of those holes for them to run through. So you have to look at the draft, see, do you have really elite offensive linemen that you can take? Do you have elite running backs? Because some drafts are much better for quarterbacks. Some drafts are much better for different positions. And yes, I mean, do you already have your franchise running back? Or do you want another back that can help, and be a dual threat? Montgomery and Gibbs, both of them, Sonic and Boom up in Detroit. Because they're very different running backs, but yet they get the job done and they've been a dual threat. They didn't have quite as a successful year this year as they have in the past. But I think this notion that you have to always draft a certain player, you have to draft for your team. And who's the best draftee out there? And how are they going to impact your team? Because, you might be heavy on one thing and you don't need something. But what is the talent pool in that draft? Are they really good defensively? Are they really good offense drafts? Because different drafts have a lot of different talent. is that talent better than the talent you have on your team as well? So I think really trying to figure out what you need and what the players are good at, and then decide. But yeah, definitely. I mean, don't sleep on the running back position, because like Mel said, it can be a dual threat. They can be catching the ball as a receiver and running the ball. And you can do that in any weather type conditions. Although more and more stadiums are being played indoors as they're building more stadiums. It seems like the outdoor stadiums are fewer and farther between these days.
Yeah, our society's getting soft. Our society's getting soft. I mean, Candy, think about your Packers. Think about the ice. Was it the Ice Bowl against the Cowboys? I mean, think about the elements that these men played in. And listen, when I was a player, I used to always think about the men who came before us, because my dad used to always talk about how players today, and this is in the 90s. He was saying this: players today are soft. You know what I'm saying? The game has changed. The game isn't. These guys aren't as tough as they used to be, and I get that. I know exactly what he means, and he's right. He's absolutely right. Man, Kenny, them boys used to go out there with no face mask and play the game the exact same way they play it now. You know what I'm saying? So just think about that. But yeah, when you think about the running back position, I mean, obviously Mel and I are both former backs playing at USC, UCLA respectively, and then both having opportunities to play with NFL organizations. I grew up watching the NFL running back be the premier guy on the offense. The quarterback was irrelevant, really. It was all about the running back. Everything went through the running back, whether it was Roger Craig or Marcus Allen, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith. I mean, these guys were the backbones of their team, which all had, and they also had good offensive linemen, and they did have quarterbacks who could spin it a little bit, but the offense went through the running back. Period. That's just what it was. So, I'm happy to see that some of the better teams in the NFL go back to the running back, that they run the ball. Even Kyle Shanahan is using McCaffrey. And again, we saw what Kenneth Walker and Saquon did the last couple of Super Bowls. But as a blocking fullback, I have a different appreciation for that. I think you can control the offense, control the game, control the clock. I think you minimize what stupid mistake your rookie quarterback or young quarterback might make. I think it's easier to put the ball in the hands of a running back. It takes away a lot of negative possibilities. And if you have a good defense, obviously, I mean, it just aids in that. So, yeah, I would like to see the NFL teams do a better job of identifying the talent of running backs that exist and go out there and getting them. I think prioritizing the run game will ultimately lead to a better offense and it's a better team. So, yeah. All right. Moving on here. Hunter Hess, U.S. freestyle skier in the 2026 Winter Olympics, when he was asked about his patriotism, when he was asked about being an American, he said he had mixed emotions just because of everything that's happening in the U.S. today. Whether you're okay with the Epstein files, whether you're okay with what's happening with ICE agents, whether you're okay with the baboons and the monkeys represented by Trump pointing at Obama and Michelle. This guy wasn't. Hunter came out and said it's an embarrassing time, essentially. He didn't say he didn't love America. He didn't say he didn't like America, but he said, ultimately, hey, this is my family and it's dysfunctional. And right now I'm not really feeling it so much. President Trump comes out and calls a guy a loser on social media. Now, is Trump wrong for that? Should Trump be even entertaining, the opinions of athletes when you have much bigger issues in the world? Mel, what are your thoughts on Hunter Hess coming out and just identifying the fact that he's not super proud right now, and he's a little upset what's happening in America, and then Trump actually taking the time to call this kid a loser? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's be careful about how we characterize what he said, because you don't want to put words in somebody's mouth. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something on the lines of whether or not they align with his views or something like that. And so he wasn't bad mouthing, the U.S. He was speaking his truth, and the president, he's going to speak out. I mean, it's amazing. This guy has more time than anybody to figure out, to talk about anything and everything. And to comment on anything and everything. And it was no different than his comment in regards to kneeling when Colin Kaepernick decided to take a knee. When he's talking about, should fire that SOB. Well, I mean, I took offense to that because you're calling my mom a B. I took offense with that. That's offensive. Now, what this young man said, and they kind of the media kind of sets these kids up, and it's unfortunate that he had to deal with that, and the backlash that came with it because the president got involved. The only reason why he received the backlash is because the president made his comment. And so it's unfortunate. This kid has worked extremely hard to get to where he is. And for somebody to set him up with that type of a question, shame on them. No, the president shouldn't be weighing in on everything. It wasn't that big of a deal what he said, but obviously anything contrary to how he thinks, he feels he has to weigh in on it. The kid is entitled to his opinion, just like the president is entitled to his opinion. I mean, two things can be true. He can be proud of his country and he can be embarrassed of his country at the same time. Those two things can be true. We talked about it. I've talked about it ad nauseum before when we were talking about the Colin Kaepernick thing. What the stars and stripes, how African Americans look at the stars and stripes versus how somebody else may look at the stars and stripes. We have two different viewpoints of the stars and stripes because there was a lot of atrocities committed under the flag. There's a lot of atrocities committed against Black people under that flag. So the way that we view the flag and the way that somebody else might view the flag can be totally different. Doesn't mean that we don't love the country, but we have a different viewpoint, a view of what that flag means. So, just because this kid said what he said does not mean that he does not love this country and shouldn't be allowed to represent the country. He worked extremely hard at his craft to get to where he was. And like I said, two things can be true. He can be extremely proud to be American, but he can also be ashamed to be American too, because of some of the things that are going on within our society right now.
Excellent point, Mel. Candy, let them have it.
In this day of social media, everything gets out there and sometimes things get blown out of proportion. Because yes, we live in America, free speech. You're allowed to say what you want. Reporters are going to ask you questions. To Mel's point, there are things about the country right now that are good and are going in the right direction. And there are some things that, sometimes we've lost respect for other people. Marvin, you and I can disagree on a topic, but that doesn't mean I'm going to discredit you or demean you. You have a right to your opinion. I have a right to my opinion. That's a part of what makes America great, is that we can have opinions. You can voice them. I hate the fact that whether it was Trump called somebody a loser, that we label people like that. That's just a demeaning term that I don't like to use. Everybody has a right to their opinion. I like the fact that the leader of this country goes to social media and puts labels like this on anybody? No. He has so many other things that he needs to be concerned with and dealing with at this point. I've said that, but I would say that of any president if they were doing this. I just think that's a term we do not need to use in this context. Did you lose a battle? Yes. Does that make you the loser of that game? Yes, but that doesn't make you a loser as a person and I just hate that term like that. And I don't think anybody should be using that term. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Candy, I agree with you. First of all, Trump needs to represent leadership. He needs to be an example of leadership. I think he should be an example, of the idea of freedom of speech. Lord knows he said many things that are absolutely crazy. And I really didn't, I didn't think that the athlete said anything, as Mel said. I don't think he said anything that was really derogatory or crazy. I think a lot of people, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, whether you're for or against Trump, I think a lot of people have struggled with certain things that they're seeing in America. And that's all part of Trump's, plan to try to clean this place up and get us on a better track, I guess. I don't know. I also don't think that when you're the most powerful man in the world, you need to learn how to dismiss certain things. You need to learn how to just let certain things go. You're the boss. You know what I'm saying? Like Tony Soprano will let that go. I mean, you're the president. So, I think it's a bad look when you look emotional and look like you're so easy to be bothered. When someone can so easily control you and bother you, make you upset, I don't think that's a good thing. And then when you respond, like we're middle school kids here with the "I'm a loser" thing, it's just a bad look. That's not leadership. And again, when you're the most powerful man in the world, you need to move differently. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it happened. I hate it for the athlete, and I want to see our president. Listen, I want to see him successful at making our country better. Making our country just better economically, make us safer, and allow American citizens to get out there and make some money. Do that for us, and let's do less back and forth with 19 and 20-year-old athletes who are just giving their honest take and exercising their freedom of speech. All right, moving on. Mel, we are in the middle of the combine, big combine week. I don't know if you went to the combine or you a pro day guy. I don't know if they even had pro days back when you were in school. I don't know. But I know this. I know that I've been watching the combine since it's been on TV. Well, I was, again, I'm a football nerd, was as a kid, and I was glued to the TV as a kid watching the combine. And they've always emphasized the 40-yard dash. The 40-yard dash always seems like it's the most important drill, and it's what everybody wants to know when they ask you, how your pro day went, how your combine went, I should say. What did you run? And that's going to say everything. Mel, are we putting too much emphasis on that? Is there really a correlation between fast 40 and great NFL player, or is this just NFL evaluators' fantasy? And what are your thoughts on this, Mel?
Well, I think a lot of them they kind of fantasize about it because it's something that they can't do. I mean, running fast is something that they can't do. So I think yes and no as far as the 40 is concerned. Do we put too much emphasis on the 40? Yes and no. One thing you can't, you can coach speed a little bit. You can get a guy maybe a little bit faster, but some of these guys, you can't coach speed. You can't coach height. Those are two things that you really can't coach. You can coach technique. You can get a guy bigger, by getting him in the weight rooms, shove him some food down his throat, but you can't coach height. You can't coach speed. And so when you get a guy who has speed, it can change, the playmaking ability of your franchise. And everybody's enamored with speed for whatever reason. Everybody's enamored with speed. So yeah, I think we do put a lot of emphasis in it because does it translate? How does it translate to football? You have to play fast. So a 4.3 guy that plays like a 4.6 or a 4.7 guy, that's not going to help you. But there are some 4.6 guys that play like a 4.3 guy. Jerry Rice was a 4.6 guy, but he played like a 4.3 guy, 4.4 guy, So you have to play the game fast, which is more important than just being straight line fast. But we just get enamored with straight line speed. I mean, it's, why do they do it? The only reason why we do it is because guys are enamored by how fast we can run. That's it. Because there's no when do you run a 40-yard dash on the football field? Very seldom do you, unless you're Jahmyr Gibbs and you bust one, you're gonna hit your head on the goalpost. That's the only time you're running the 40-yard dash, or we don't even run a 40-yard dash on kickoffs anymore. When you run down on the kickoff team anymore. But yeah, Marvin, we did have combines back in our day, and I did go to the combine. I didn't run at the combine. The day before the combine, I had a hamstring problem that whole year. And the day before the combine, me and my buddy Gaston Green were on the track with John Smith, who holds the world record still to this day in the 440-yard dash, because we don't run it anymore. He holds the whole record. He was the coach at UCLA, and we're out there getting ready. And I was going to run sub 4.5 at the combine. I'm ready. Because I remember what Alonzo Highsmith had ran the 40 in and where he went in the draft. So I'm saying, okay, this is what I have to do. If I want to get drafted here, this is what I need to do. And I've been dealing with that hamstring injury. On the very last step, right before, like at the 39-yard line, I felt something pop in my hamstring on the very last sprint that we were running. And that's when I pulled the hamstring. I pulled the hamstring from the bone. It came right off the bone. So I did go to the combine. I still was able to do the standing broad jump. I did the bench press. I'm not sure if I did the drills. I know I didn't. I tried to run the 40. I couldn't run the 40. But it did. did everything that I could do, all the medical and stuff like that. And the crazy thing, I remember when Gaston Green was doing the medical, Gaston Green, who's a big time, he was the first running back drafted that year. I think he was drafted 15th by the Rams. Gaston ran a 4.29 at the combine. The guys were just like, oh, I mean, you could just hear the hush over the whole stadium when he ran his 40. He ran a 4.31 and then a 4.29. I think that was the fastest one at the combine that year. And I remember, the big thing I remember is the interviews and the medicals. So I'm after him going doing the medical, and I remember them turning him on his side, and the doctor put some gloves on and some lube and bloop. I'm like, man, is this what we're doing? I'm like, is this what we're doing here? Checking his prostate. I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm telling you that's how I don't know if they still do that, but that's how the combine was. But yeah, I think we do put, they're again, I just think people are just enamored with speed. That's the only reason why we run it, because there's really no other time. You like big guys with speed. I saw the guys from Ohio State. Boy, they got some guys who can absolutely flat out run. I take Sonny Styles and I make him a safety. I mean, 6'5", 240, running the 4.46. He's my safety. Forget about linebacker. I make him a safety. Back in the day, when you see a guy like that, seeing Ronnie Lott hanging out in the middle of the field would put fear in wide receivers, because back then they could take your head off when you came across the middle. Obviously now you can't do that stuff. Ronnie Lott had the big old shoulder pads, man. He looked cute. I mean, he was big anyway, and he was mean and nasty. But yeah, I think that we put too much emphasis in it. But a lot of guys draft stock will, and guys will go, and I think ownership and GMs will go into it saying, hey, we're not going to get excited about a guy's 40 time. I'm not going to. And as soon as they see a guy run a 4.38, they get real excited. Sonny Styles' brother, he ran a 4.38. This guy was predicted to be like a practice squad player, potential bottom of the roster player. You run a 4.38, you're first day in the draft. I'm telling you, you're day one. You're no longer a priority free agent or day 2 or day 3. You 4.38, you're first day. You're going to get drafted somewhere in the first day. In the first 3 rounds, without question.
Great take, Mel. Great take. Mel, real quick, did we get your 40-yard dash in there? Did you throw that out there? Did we?
I didn't run the 40, but I can tell you what I did in the bench. I can tell you what I did.
Hold on, no. We ain't going.
I didn't run the 40. Run the 40. I couldn't.
Okay, all right.
It's his hamstring.
What would you have ran? What would you have ran?
I was going to run sub 4.5. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I was going to run sub 4.5. There's no question in my mind. That's what I was going to do. I hear you. And I did the bench press. I look at it every year and I see what these guys do, particularly at the running back position. I did 225 28 times.
28?
28.
That's outstanding. That's for y'all who don't know.
And look here. We didn't train for it. Yeah. I remember me and Ken Norton, we're down in the UCLA locker room. We're just, we got 315 and we're just doing that as many times as we could to get ready for it, to get ready for combine. He did it 29 times. I did 28. We're just messing around with 315. But if I really lifted weights in college, I got banned from lifting weights in college because I got too big. Our coach said I was getting too big. So he prohibited me from going to the gym, going to the weight room. We just got strong from just doing stuff. Outside, down ups. I don't know. People don't know what down ups are. We used to have to do 110 down ups in high school. If I really lifted weights, once I got to 400 in the bench and 500 in the squat, I stopped. What do I need? Why do I need to be stronger? That was my thing. I was already. So if I were to really lifted weights, there's no telling what I would have done.
Yeah, well, you represent a different generation. Obviously, it's a different mentality now. But we see that gray hair and that beard, man. We all know Mel's from back in the day. Candy, are we putting too much emphasis on the 40-yard dash? Is this too much? Does it even matter?
I think it does matter, because I know, Mel, you're saying that you don't run 40 on the field, but if someone breaks free and you're trying to run and catch up to them, you're the straightest, point from 1A to B is running a dash like that. Is it all encompassing? No. Is it the only thing we look at? No. We need to be really well rounded. I think there are certain positions that, yes, you can definitely put an emphasis on the 40-yard dash. Because do I want a wide receiver that, is 5/6 less, has less time than the other one? Obviously, you want speed, especially at certain positions.
Jerry Rice ran a 4.6. He's the greatest wide receiver in the history of the game.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Yes, he is. Yes,
I get it. So,
and I didn't see a lot of people catch him either.
There you go. So is it overrated? I don't know. But it is important. Is it the only thing? No. I think let's face it, a lot of things go into being an NFL player and having success. It's not just you either. It's the team you go to. The biggest thing is
heart. You have to have some courage.
Yes. You have to want to be there. You have to want to work at it. It's not easy. And I think this generation now, they want to be handed things instead of work really hard. You have to be motivated. You have to really be disciplined. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. And so maybe it's a little overrated, but it's one of the key things I think that we've looked at for how many years.
Yeah. I think it's completely overrated. And the reason why I say that is just because if you want to see if a guy it can explode when he runs, if you want to see, his footwork, if you want to see him separate, watch the film. Because you have a lot of guys go out there and run, 4.5, 4.4, 4.3, but none of that translates to the field. You don't see 4.3 on the field at all. Whereas Jerry Rice, like Mel was saying, this guy ran a 4.6. He looked like he ran 4.3 out there. Nobody caught him. All you see are clips of him breaking away. You know what I'm saying? Like running away from fools. So I think it's really overrated. I do. I think if you want to know if a guy can play, 1, watch the film. 2, talk to his coaches and teammates. See what they say about him. You know what I'm saying? So I understand that, these guys are these teams are making big investments into these players. I get that. And you want to know everything about your player before you make that investment, give them that money, bring them to your organization. I get all that. But again, if you want to see if he's fast and explosive, watch the film. If you don't see it on the film, then what he runs, in his draws at the combine don't matter at all. It's an overrated situation completely. And
the combine is overrated, I think. I think the combine is just another thing that we talk about, the NFL adding fuel to, they have to do something during that downtime. And this is just something to keep the fans excited about the upcoming draft and about the upcoming season. I mean, we see now with the new salary caps coming out, the NFL is over $20 billion industry now. It's a $20 billion industry. I mean, and they're growing each and every year. And this is just something that they just keep feeding the fans, and the fans really love it. They absolutely, they love watching it. Just like you said, Marvin, I mean, you're a football nut. You eat this stuff up.
Loved it, man. I'll tell you what, this was, the NFL Combine was like a Christmas, for me as a kid, just being able to watch it, consecutive days. And, my dad was an agent, so he would come home with, I would have the data on the results and all that stuff. And I was really into that kind of stuff. Quick history. So for those who don't know, Mel and myself, our dads are former NFL All-Pros. And I remember my dad went first round in the 77 draft. And he had told me that when the Jets drafted Wesley Walker in the second round of the 77 draft, wide receiver out of Cal, the Jets did not know that Wesley was blind, completely blind in his left eye until they drafted him and got him in the building. That's when they found out that he was blind in his left eye. And because of stories like that, you ultimately got the NFL Combine to come together for the first time in 1985. Before the Combine, teams did their own testing, and there were other agencies out there. But the Combine, as we know it today, came about in 1985 as a result of players basically being able to hide injuries, which I think is a big deal. For those who don't know, Wesley Walker would go on to be an All-Pro, team MVP, and he's now in the Ring of Honor for the New York Jets. Candy, you want to go to our station break now?
I was gonna can we do some of these comments in the chat room only because Earl wants to say hi. Mike said every time a team win, they can use them as a blueprint. But then Earl has a good question. Why is it set at 40? The field is 100.
Yeah. So Mel, you can speak to this as well. You know, football is it's definitely a game of movement, but the reality is, I think the 40-yard dash represents more explosion with speed. I think, you know, your ability to get off says a lot, I think, about your ability to plant and go. I don't have I don't have the textbook answer for that.
And I think it's about as long as a play lasts too, you know, and I think all that correlates to it. I mean, play lasts a certain amount of seconds, you know, maybe some are longer than others, but I think it has to do with that. But again, it definitely has to do with explosion. That's why they talk about that's why you talk about the standing broad jump. That's why you talk about verticals. You know, all those things have to do with explosion, the shuttle, how you get in and out of short area quickness. They want to see what your short area quickness is like, how long it takes you to get back up to top speed. So that I think that's why, you know, football is a lot of things done in small spaces, and how you operate in small spaces and how quickly you can get from 0 to 100 in that small space. Like Barry Sanders, I mean, he can get to 0 to 100 in one step. You know, some guys, it might take 2 or 3 steps to get to 0, you know, to get to 100. And they want to see that. And, you know, the combine gives them an opportunity to see it. But again, a lot of these guys prepare for this stuff now. Back in the day, we didn't prepare for this stuff. We just, you know, we didn't have places that we would go to in Arizona or Florida or something like that, and we would just train for the combine. We just show up, you know, and go out there and run and lift and do all that other stuff. We just showed up.
And then Mike Larry also says Senior Bowl shows competition. The combine does nothing.
Yeah.
But I think to your points, you guys are changing that a little bit and telling us, but it shows injuries and it shows some of that, exposes a little bit of that.
Yeah. You know, again, one of the other benefits of the combine is it gives teams an opportunity to sit down with players and get to know them. The other aspect, as you just said, after I discussed Wesley Walker, was the medical. You go through a medical exam, you know. So it's really more of a formal job interview process more than anything else. I get that.
There's some teams that don't even go. Andy Reid's not going this year because of a knee injury, but the Rams don't even go to the combine.
Yeah.
Sean McVay doesn't go.
Yeah. I get it.
Okay. I'll do my station break now. South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, who typically hosts this show, but is taking a breather today due to health reasons. And we're letting Marvin sit in and audition here and get his feet wet as a host. So South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published this book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also the audio version is out there wherever you get your audio book. There's a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a guest, have topic ideas, or want to advertise, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And last but not least, if you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. What are you waiting for? Just click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family, and turn on your notifications so you're notified every time we go live. Back to you, Marvin.
Thank you, Candy. All right. So football fans, if you've ever watched the game and you saw a player whose helmet looked really big, much different than anybody else's helmet out there, you probably wonder what that was. Back in the day, the Buffalo Bills had a player, Steve Tasker. He used to wear what we call now guardian caps. Guardian caps essentially are additional padding, if you will, that you put on the helmet. And in the day and age of CTE and just everything we know about mental health and head injuries, the guardian cap is something that in 2022 was put in place. The NFL experimented with having certain positions wear these caps in practice. And my question is, as we see guys get laid out and we see guys have injuries and we see guys who are unfortunately going through mental health crises off the field and away from the game, Mel, do you see the NFL instituting a policy where the guardian cap is now mandatory and now everybody's out there playing with the guardian cap? Is that going to happen, Mel?
No, because aesthetically it doesn't look good. How come the pads be getting smaller and the helmet get bigger? That doesn't make any sense. You get less pads and bigger helmets. I mean, the helmets already look big as it is right now compared to. I mean, I've never seen so many helmets fall off people's heads. You know, back in the day, if your helmet came off, your head was going to be inside of it. Those helmets couldn't come off; they were so tight, and there it was hard to get. Put your helmet on. It's hard to take your helmet off. I don't see it because aesthetically, it just doesn't look good. They're just going to have to invest in making sure the helmets are better. I think I told you guys this story. When I was at UCLA in high school, I wore a bike helmet. When I got to UCLA, they wore Rydell's because there was some kind of lawsuit going on against bike at that particular time. I couldn't wear a Rydell helmet. Every time I hit, I would get a headache. I used to go to practice with Anacin in my pocket because my head would hurt all the time from contact. Every time I would hit, I would get a headache. And I'd go to the equipment manager because there were some guys out there with bike helmets. Hey, why can't I get a bike? The lawsuit going on, can't get a bike. Only way you can get a bike is if you get a concussion. Oh, okay. So all season went along. We're playing Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. Very first play, the kickoff, opening kickoff, bang, I got hit. I got hit on the side of the head, knocked out. I walked to the sidelines. I come to about 9 minutes left in the first quarter or something like that. They're doing all this kind of stuff. Mel, do you know where you are? Finally, I can answer and respond and say where I'm at. The first thing I did is ran to the equipment manager. Can I get a bike now? He said, you can get a bike. After that, I never had a problem. So it's just a matter of getting the right equipment on these guys. You got to get the right equipment. You got to find the right helmet. It's not necessarily the most sexiest helmet or whatever. You just got to find the right helmet that works for you. Not every helmet works for every player. I couldn't wear a Rydell. The way it was made, I couldn't wear it. But that bike helmet, fill it up with some air, I'm ready to go. I could use my head as a weapon, as we were taught to do back then.
Candy, do you want to see your Green Bay Packers out there with the big old Guardian cap helmets? Are you ready to see this?
There's actually a couple of players on the Packers team that actually do wear the Guardian cap on it. In today's day and age, with all the technology that we have and how aesthetically pleasing we want everybody to look, because we pay attention to uniforms. They have how many different kind of uniforms, how many different helmets.
That uniform police.
Yeah. I would think they would be able to come up with some better technology within the helmet that they have already. If somebody wants to wear the Guardian cap, I'm not going to say no, because it's their safety, it's their health. It's up to them, but I would think we would be able to do better with the helmet, the protection of the actual helmet itself. But CTE is nothing to take lightly. Obviously, if we look at how many players, you look at like Brett Favre now, he's come out and said, all the concussions he's had. I think we've gone from one message to another message to another message. For a while there, everybody was saying, don't let your kids play football because it's a violent game and this could happen to them. So I think we have to protect the individual, but we have to respect their right and what they feel is comfortable for them. But I think at some point we're going to have enough technology that we wouldn't need an extra Guardian helmet. That I think the helmets have come a long ways, that a regular helmet would be sufficient. But I've never played the game, so that's just me.
Yeah. It really stands out. Deion said, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, they pay good. Them Guardian caps don't look good. I wouldn't feel good. I would feel, I would feel weird wearing that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think it's realistic when you look at, the NFL, the concussion lawsuit, and you're now we're dealing, unfortunately, with players who are dealing with mental health in the most extreme ways, unfortunately. I think it's all realistic. I think the Guardian cap is no different as the face mask. It's something that's revolutionary. It's new. It's different. It's weird to a lot of people who were been watching football years past. I think it's just coming. Again, the human body was not made for college and NFL football. Youth football, high school football, that's a little bit different. But at the college level, I mean, it's violent. And in the NFL, it's violent with grown men. So yeah,
you think Marvin, the innovation has changed the game of football. So you think back to when they didn't have helmets, when they weren't wearing them leather caps and no face masks, how they tackled back then. It was more of a rugby style of a tackle back then. When you did introduce the hard shell helmet and the face mask, guys started putting their hat underneath folks' chin. So it changed the way people played the game too. Innovation has changed the way that people play the game. Now they're trying to take that out. Now they want you to play like you don't have a helmet, and you don't have a face. They don't want you to put your face mask in there anymore. They don't want you to lead with the crown of your head. We were taught to lead with the crown of your head growing up. Put that right underneath their chin. That's how we were taught. Now they're trying to teach you to play how they played without the helmet and the face mask.
Yeah. No, excellent point, Mel. You're absolutely right. Because again, you and I are both fullbacks, and for me, being much more of a blocking fullback, my helmet was a weapon. It was a great weapon. I loved it. Used it every play. I mean, it was just helmet, shoulder pad. But yeah, I was trying to get this top of the helmet right here under your chin, man.
Under the chin.
You ain't lying. That was it. All right, we're winding down here, Mel. In 1999, I was an NFL free agent rookie with the New Orleans Saints, and the minimum pay, which I got as an undrafted player, was $175,000. Man, I thought I was rich. I thought I was rich. Okay,
I was just trying to get the little 75.
Now, undrafted rookies last year made $795,000. Almost $1 million. In 2026, that number is going to go up. All right, as they're adding, I think $20 million to the cap. They're going to be at $1 million in the next couple years minimum. But right now, they're at $795. Mel, what was the league minimum, if you can recall, when you played? And what do you think about these players today making almost $1 million as undrafted free agents?
Yeah, it was $75,000 was the league minimum back then. They had a little split. They had a way. So if you ended up on IR back then, they used to stash people on IR. They didn't have my first year. They didn't have practice squad, so they would stash people on IR. So if you got stashed on IR, then you'd make $50,000. Now that was the year I was drafted by the Broncos in 1988. When I got released by the Broncos, I went to the Rams in 1989, and that was the first year of the practice squad. Practice squad, we made $1,000 a week. We did everything that everybody else did, but we made $1,000 a week. Last game of the season, safety got hurt. Our starting safety got hurt, broke his wrist. I got called up the last game of the year. And so I made a regular game check for the last game of the year. And then I played in the three in our three playoff games. That was more money I'd made all year. I think I got like $6,000 the first week. I think the second week was like $18,000. And then the divisional championship game against San Francisco, I think I got $36,000. I thought I was rolling, but other guys, obviously they were making big money. But I mean, I thought I couldn't have been happier with that little check that I got. But yeah, that was it. And you think about the salary cap, the very first salary cap, which was I think 1995, was like $54,000. And now it's at $301 million. And that's why I said you take that 301, you multiply it times 32, you get to about a little less than 20 billion. We know the players get about 48%, 45%, I think, of total revenue. So we know that we're talking about a over $20 billion industry. That's how I came with my numbers.
Candy, what do you think about NFL rookies, undrafted free agents making almost $1 million a year?
So to give you a perspective, what I did is I took your $175,000 from 1999. What would it be worth today? On a website that shows us that uses inflation, it would be worth $340,503.
So in other words, you're just saying it's not relative.
It's not let's face it. We've talked about football is a violent game, but it's a game that can make people a lot of money. You take risks, and I guess sometimes when you take risks, you got to get paid for those risks. But it's also playing a game that you love, like in doing something that you love. I mean, pay me $1 million. I'll go out there. I'll be the next kicker. Sure, why not, right?
Yeah.
But hey, it's a big business, and we've said that, like, that's what it is. It's a business.
Candy, I think that what they, we used to always talk about the kind of money that movie stars make, right? That it's just not relative, getting 30, 40, $50 million for a pitcher. We understand that football is not just a business, it's entertainment. So when you're in the entertainment stratosphere, you get paid disproportionate to what, to what you're doing. Entertainers get paid disproportionate to what, to what they bring on the film. I mean, does it make sense to pay a guy $40 million, $50 million for a movie? Does it make sense to pay your quarterback $60 million? No, it doesn't make sense to pay your quarterback that kind of money. But guess what? We're in the, not only in the business, we're in the entertainment business.
Correct. 100%. Supply and demand too. Supply and demand. You only have so many players that play at that elite level, and you're going to pay them for that. So I get it. But that's a lot of money.
All good takes. Very thankful for your contributions here. At this point, we're winding down. There were a few more topics that we're gonna not get to here today, but there is one. There's something I want to talk to Mel about. For y'all who don't know, again, Mel Farr Jr. Participated in collegiate athletics at the University of California at Los Angeles. They call it UCLA. This is a school that has over 100 national championships. They used to call the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 the conference championships. But UCLA has over 100 national championships across many different sports, men's and women's. Mel, when you look at UCLA athletes and just their impact, whether it's just football or beyond football, who are your three favorite UCLA Bruin athletes when you look at their contribution and just how they may have impacted you? Who are the three names in that school's history that you think about?
Well, this is excluding our parents, and I know you're saying excluding our dads. So, and so I didn't know if you're talking about football or you're talking about university.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
There's different ways you can go with it, because as far as university wise, you have to go with Jackie Robinson, obviously number one. University wise, without question, Rayford Johnson. You have to look at it as well. And then he was Lou Alcindor back then, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. For me, to be able to walk in the same space as some of those men. It's just too much to take in. And I know, if I were to go to USC and, you think about, OJ Simpson, being out there in the same practice field that you were on, or whether it be Mike Garrett or Marcus Allen, was one of the guys that I really enjoyed watching play. But I would have to say, if I was just talking about the university as a whole, athletes, if it was just football, it would be Jerry Robinson, it would be Don Rogers, and it would be Kenny Easley. It was just football. But if you're talking about the university, it's going to be obviously Jackie Robinson, Rayford Johnson, and then, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, I got you, man. Listen, playing across town from you at the greatest university in the history of our great country here, USC, we've had many great athletes as well, excluding our parents. When I think about some of the great Trojans, when I was a high school kid, I played a little tight end, and I had an appreciation for blocking with my dad being an offensive tackle. But I wanted to be Tony Baselli. And during high school, I used to go out there and practice and in games as if I was Tony Baselli. I took tremendous pride in blocking. I thought it was cool, and I thought it was a great way to go kick somebody's butt. When I look at some of our other players, gotta look at Marcus Allen, man. Marcus Allen was an underrated fullback, one of the best fullbacks, of his day at the time, running 19 different times for 100 yards while blocking for the then Heisman Trophy winner Charles White. And then Marcus obviously goes to tailback. He was the first running back to ever run for 2,000 yards. He was coming out the backfield years before Reggie Bush and these guys, man. And then when I asked Jack Ward, the head trainer at USC, who had been there for almost 50 years, I asked him of all the players who've come through the program, who was the toughest? He said Marcus Allen. Yeah, he said Marcus Allen. So that's it right there for me. And then the last guy I got to mention is a new guy, because I really hate that we wasted his talent, because he is the best quarterback we've ever seen at USC. Caleb Williams. Caleb, we had some above average years, we'll say, with Caleb, but he was carrying the whole ship, man. He was carrying. We were so bad. We had so many holes. Caleb did a phenomenal job. Candy, when you think of USC, UCLA athletics, there has to be at least one player who you can think of.
All the ones that you named, let's face it. You guys hit the nail on the head. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's definitely great tradition here. Everybody, this is it. I am more than thankful to Scott Morganroth and for Candy for allowing me to sit in this position. I'm thankful for Mel just for giving us great content today. And, Candy, obviously, when I got the call to do this, I feel like I was being called up to the pros,
Got called up to the big leagues. Yeah, you got called up to the big leagues.
So I'm really thankful. I hope the viewers enjoyed the show. Listen, if Scott needs another backup, please feel free to give me a call. I know Mel would love to jump in there too. So guys, that's all we have today.
And Marvin, I just want to say, man, you look good, man. I don't know if that's that Grecian formula, but you got that four tops Levi Stubbs look going on, man. You're looking good, brother.
Hey, when Candy gave me that call, when I got the call that I'm going to the big leagues, and I had to switch it up. So I'm giving you a little Hugo Boss, giving you a little, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to do my part. But as they say, that's all, folks.
So you want to go around the horn? Mel, how can people find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me all of social media at Mel Farr Jr. and then follow what we have going on for the youth at melfarsuperstarfoundation.org.
Marvin, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me 5 times a week right here with the South Florida Tribune. And you can find me 2 or 3 times a week as well with Locked On USC. And then obviously social media, Marvin Powell III, Marvin on the mic. Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons to the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, the founder and owner of South Florida Tribune. He wrote this great book, talks about the media industry and how it has evolved and changed. Old school media versus new school media, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also the audio book out there. Go check it out. You can go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a link to the book, and there's also a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you ever want to be a guest on a show or have topic ideas or want to advertise, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast, and if you don't see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Please do so and turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. Thanks, Marvin. Great job.
Again, looking forward to doing this again at some point. Thank the South Florida Tribune, and we'll see y'all next time.